everyone, it is Sabra from Hoof Falls and Foot Falls, and I am going to go live today to talk about intentional touch from our volunteers and our instructors and why that is important when it comes to our students and our horses and how it impacts our students and our horses. So intentional touch, what is that? Basically, that is being intentional about what we're doing with our hands when we are working with our students. And there's 3 photos that we're going to take a look at really quick here. So let me go ahead and grab my little drawing pen. So intentional touch. So 2 things that are seen here in this video that demonstrate intentional touch are this hand right here and this hand right here. So a lot of times when we're working with our volunteers, we talk a lot about the different kinds of holds that we can do with our riders. So, thigh hold, heel hold, hand over hand when it comes to helping them with reining, but we don't necessarily address what they should be doing with their hands in between those moments. So what if they're not physically supporting a student? What should they do with their hands? And these 2 hands that are circled on the screen, this is a very common thing that I see in lessons, and it happens in my lessons all the time, and it's something that is easily overlooked a lot of times, but it can have a huge impact on our students, and in this photo, on our horses. So intentional touch is just basically teaching our volunteers, or even us as instructors, of being aware of what our hands are doing. So by having this hand here setting on the saddle pad, even though it might be kind of in a location that doesn't seem to be impacting the rider, that's okay. But remember that our horses can feel that. So what this hand here is doing is even that light touch on the saddle pad is giving that horse a cue to potentially move that way. If the person on the other side is doing the same thing, that horse could be having 2 points of pressure on them that really don't mean anything. And so are they having to screen out and not pay attention to that information? Or are they responding to that information, and maybe this volunteer on the right-hand side is pushing harder than the volunteer on the left-hand side, and maybe they're causing that horse to drift a little bit if they're moving. So even though our equine coworkers can't really, talk back to us in a verbal way, they're feeling that touch, and it should be very intentional. And again, this is not bashing on the volunteers at all. This is just strictly a learning situation, and this is an awesome freeze frame that we can look at and analyze and use as a learning moment, and that's totally okay. I'm very appreciative of the of the instructor in the center that donated these photos so that we could take a look at this for a learning situation. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at another photo here, and we'll take a look at another example of unintentional touch. And actually, before we move on, staying on this photo here, so these horses standing, taking a drink break at the watering hole is great, but again, standing here with this unintentional touch could impact the horse and cause them to just get overwhelmed with humans touching them, because our horses that work alongside us in our programs are not only having to worry about the students that are there working with them, but they also then have to worry about potentially this team of 3 people supporting the student as well. So your sidewalker 1, sidewalker 2 on the other side, and then your horse leader. So our horses have a lot to put up with in the adaptive or the therapeutic riding setting, and we need to be aware of all those extra stressors that could impact them, one of those stressors being unintentional touch. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at the second photo here. So here's another, here's another photo that we can look at here. And if you can spot the unintentional touch here, again, if it's only happening on this one side, then what is that horse feeling? Is it feeling that downward pull on the pad? Is this going to cause this little treeless saddle to start rotating this way? Is that going to cause the horse to kind of start drifting around the corner to the left? What is this horse feeling? Again, this volunteer is probably doing this in an effort to be able to have eyes on the student and stay up with him, which is a very awesome thing for that volunteer to do. But if they're doing this and it's causing the horse to move in a certain way or impact the straightness and the tracking of that horse, even though it comes from a good intention of trying to stay up with that rider and that horse, this may not be the best thing to do. So maybe teaching that volunteer how to check in with the rider visually while also keeping larger steps while they're walking might be something that you need to do. Or maybe this horse has too big of a stride to be a good partner for this volunteer, and maybe they're just not a good match size-wise and stride-wise when it comes to volunteer and horse. So that's something to think about as well. Is this a good match? Is this volunteer doing this to try to stay up with the student and the horse? Or is it maybe just a habit? So last photo we're going to look at here is another unintentional touch hand here. And this one is the volunteer grabbing onto the pad. And this one, it looks like that they're kind of applying a little bit of backwards pressure. So that could maybe be causing the horse to feel like they're slowing down while the horse leader here is trying to ask the horse to move out. So again, is this a problem of the horse moving and having a large stride that is maybe not compatible with this volunteer right here? So, you know, what is this pairing a good pair? Does this volunteer even realize what's going on? Something I use a lot with my volunteers when I'm in a class using volunteer teams like this is I'll say creepy hand check. That's a cue for them to check if their hands are resting on the student, not necessarily the horse. Or I could just say hand check, sidewalkers, everyone hand check. And that's a really good way to kind of do a group reminder and a group correction without having to single out a single volunteer and make them feel like they're doing something wrong. And if you do that global correction of, okay, everybody hand check or hand placement check or whatever term you want to do, and let's say you have 3 different teams in the arena and everyone does a check, but maybe this team is still not getting the message, you could say, okay, Stormy, maybe this horse's name is Stormy, Stormy's team, can everybody on that team, sidewalkers and horse leader, can you guys please do a hand check really quick? And hopefully that then will cue into Stormy's team here that that's what they need to do. And then again, if that still doesn't fix this correction, you can maybe kind of, as this team is walking by you as an instructor, you know, whisper really quickly to the sidewalker, hey, Susie, can you check your hand placement? Let's be aware of touching Stormy's pad and helping him walk along. Maybe take a couple bigger steps and let's check in after class and I'd be happy to explain my correction here and let's talk afterwards. But, you know, thank you so much for sidewalking. So being aware of this intentional touch and the unintentional touches that happen during class is super important to our students and our horses, especially our equine coworkers, because these unintentional touches over time do add up and can cause equine burnout and just not set our horses up for success. So let me know if you have seen these unintentional touches in classes and if you do your best to monitor and teach intentional touches with your instructors and also with your volunteers. Thank you guys so much for joining in during this live stream. Feel free to comment if you're joining in after the live time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.